Talking of this uncertainty, Abhay suggested citizen-centric governance, which you spoke about a little while ago. Involvement of citizens at the ward level.
I believe that this is the way to go forward. So today, if you form a ward committee, and if you say ward committees have certain powers, are you ready as an elected corporator to share your power with the ward committee? If you are not, then it doesn't really matter what the law says. You will get this tension anyway. Now, I'm sure what will happen the next is some people will go to court and say, why is it that a law that you have yourself passed has not been implemented? Why is it taking so many months or even years to write the rules for a legislation after it has been signed by the governor? This will happen.
Similarly, there is what you call the Bangalore Metropolitan Council that you have talked about,
MPC,
bringing in all these civic bodies under one roof. I think that is a fantastic, like what you said in Bombay. The BBMP commissioner, Bombay commissioner, has more powers to control all the other organizations. Won't this particular body help in bringing the bane of Bangalore is lack of coordination between various civic agencies?
It will help, but it will also do one other thing. It will make the elected leaders of Bangalore considerably more important, even as state politicians. Therefore, this is one of the things. It's like saying, how does a guy like Giuliani or Bloomberg think that he can be mayor of the city and then go on to contest the governorship of the state? Fundamentally, the city is an important part of the state. So if you're an important political leader of the city, the next natural step is to think that I can be an important political leader of the state. Now, this is a tension, naturally. But once you decide and embrace the idea that we are all in this together, it should not really matter. But fundamentally, we're going to continue with this problem as long as state political leadership thinks of city-level leadership as a quote-unquote unmanageable risk. The way to balance that risk is to not only create city-level leadership of politicians, but also to create city-level leadership of tensions. And what do I mean by that? Essentially, to say, let the communities be empowered. If the communities are empowered, they will deal with the city. And city politics will be focused more strongly on what communities want and what city elected governments can deliver. This will spare the state government the need for intervening in city affairs and free them to do all sorts of things at the state level, legislative leadership, policy-making leadership. This is what is needed. Today, they're not able to free themselves from the city because they're asked to be accountable for the city.
Similarly, you have also said a longer term for mayor or a mayoral council which can be formed. What do you have to say?
It's necessary. I mean, there's no two ways about it. The way our system is that the mayor changes too often. That before she can implement her idea of what the city should do, she's out of office. And it's a practical matter. I think this is one of the flaws of the 74th Amendment. That while guys like Manishankar Iyer got it reasonably right to say that more people from more backgrounds in Indian society should be included in the politics of this country. I think that's great. But he should have also thought about how do you make sure that those leaders have the necessary space to emerge as leaders. You can't actually do, in most of your councils, for example, what's happening now is it takes 3 months after the election to decide who the leader itself should be. And we are forced to do something that we don't do at the state and national levels. In council, you don't need a majority. I don't know if many people realize this. In the state assembly, you need a majority. In parliament, you need a majority. In council, you don't need a majority. The largest party can by and large form the leadership on its own, even if it does not have 50% of the seats. And so there are many councils in which this is what is happening. And if you look at the council, the horse trading is also that much higher. People switching, not so much in Bangalore, but in other cities certainly. People switching from one party to the other is rampant throughout municipalities in India. Fundamentally, what is happening is at the council level, people think of the job as only contracts management.
Yeah.
Right? Even your typical thing, if you say, what do you expect? You catch the average citizen and say, what do you expect from the corporator? And they'll say, good roads and good drains. You know, a maintenance contract with a performance-oriented company is enough to achieve that. The local leader has to be able to provide more than just infrastructure. He has to articulate a vision of what is good for that neighborhood and develop that vision in terms of other parameters: healthcare, education, jobs, quality of life, public spaces, power supply. All of those things are important too.
Dr. Ashwin, even existing laws are not fully implemented. Existing laws, I mean. How can you cope to create change through new laws in this scenario?
I think existing laws are getting more and more likely to be implemented, and more pressure to implement them is coming. Obviously, RTI is a big tool in all this. The last week, for example, we had this case of somebody on the street complaining that the policewoman who stopped her for a traffic ticket assaulted her. And the policewoman claimed in turn that the private citizen had assaulted her. Now, I don't want to get into the judgment of who is right and who is wrong, but we represented before the Home Secretary that this thing should be judged by an independent authority, that an internal investigation by the police department is not enough to address this question, that this should be done by a different kind of inquiry. And we found that actually the government has set up such an organization called the Police Complaints Authority, to which you can make complaints. And it's still nascent. There's only a chairman, there are no members, there's no staff. It's not,
there is a body.
There is a body, or there's one body at least. It's not clear where the rest of the body is and where they sit and things like that. But what I'm saying is that once a process gets established, now you can use tools like RTI to demand adherence to that process. I believe this will happen. If you take a body like the KERC, the Electricity Regulatory Commission, the fact that it exists has made tariff management in power much more regulated and sensible than tariff management in water. In water, completely unregulated water management has resulted in one class of private businesses around groundwater, which are completely outside the system, and another class of people, even well-off people like you and me, paying much less than what it costs to deliver water to our houses. And a third class of people who need the water but are not getting it because of all these irregularities in the system. So fundamentally, implementation of law is improving, but it's improving because people are demanding adherence to the implementation of the law.